Hello guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench. Welcome back. Bit of a different video for you today. If you've seen part 19, it may not have actually gone out yet by the time you see this. But I've been working on the A20G, the 1/32 scale from Hong Kong Models A20G engines, because I was waiting for the oxygen hoses to come in for the cockpit. The oxygen hoses have now turned up, so I can get back on with the cockpit now really. But I was looking in part 19, or I will be looking in part 19 if you haven't seen it, looking at the ignition loom, getting the cables in and everything for the ignition wiring. And as you can see, the Hong Kong Models engine, it's very nice. Okay, it's got the ignition ring there. We've got the spark plugs in there. We don't have any rear spark plugs. I've discovered from research during that video that it's actually got 2 spark plugs per cylinder. So it should have a spark plug in the rear of the cylinder, and it should have a spark plug in the rear of these cylinders as well. So on the forward cylinders, it's on the left hand, or on the, as you're sitting in the cockpit, on the forward cylinders, it's on the right hand side of the cylinder head, and on the rear cylinder bank, it's on the left hand side of the cylinder head. Okay, so basically it's kind of opposite to what it is on the front. And there's nothing there, so we're just going to drill some holes and put cables in there. Now at the end of part 19, when I did the engine, I said I was going to use the Edward photo etch set. And you can see here's the instructions for it here, and you can see it's all these pieces of photo etch that go in. These bits here, by the way, I forgot to mention in the video, they're actually rubber buffers, and they support the, I guess they stop the cowlings rattling around, but they sit on the front of these cam covers here, or rocker covers, and you're really not going to see them, so I probably won't bother with them. I don't know, we'll have a look and see how much they can be seen. Here's the engine actually in the cowl, so you can see there, if I get that lined up with that, there you go. You can see when you look inside there, you're going to have to look right around the side to actually see them. I'm not sure if you're going to see them at all, but we'll see. I may put them on there just for a bit more detail. So you can see there. Now the trouble is with photo etch is you can see that the lines are here behind this plastic sheet, and the trouble is it's two-dimensional. It's flat, if you like. It's not a round section. So I think you get away with it on 72nd 48th, but I'm not too sure about 30 seconds. So I went away and had a think about it. Now I've looked at these spark plugs and all the bits and pieces, and I don't really want to waste them on this, because in reality this recess here where the spark plug is kind of flatter. So you've got this sort of deeper recess which has a flatter base. So the spark plug is kind of at that angle, like that, and then has a like a 90 degree on the end. So if I use the spark plugs, the 90 degree is going to be pointing straight down. It's not going to look very good at all. And as you've just seen, when it's in the cowling, you can't really see them. They're not in your face. So I'm not going to use the spark plugs. I'm just going to drill holes. When it comes to the ignition ring here, this is a bit of a weird one, because you can see you've got these mouldings on here, which they always do on aircraft kit engines. They always do. So you have a couple of options. If you're going to use the photo etch, I would suggest sanding the back flat. Sand it into a wedge so you get a flat back, which just sort of comes halfway up the diameter, and then you can stick your photo etch onto there, get a nice secure bond, and then you can play around with your cables and get them all connected. But what I want to do is fit wire. So you can see these raised areas on here. Okay, now they are, let me get the light down a bit lower so you can see what I'm looking at. Those raised areas there, it's focusing on the spindle, they are actually about 0.5 diameter. So if you're going to drill a 0.3 hole in them, you need to be pretty precise. And the first thing you need to do is come along with a pointed tool and actually find the center. So I'm bringing my magnifier over. Now this is a bit of a weird one here, because I'm working through my magnifier and hoping that you can still see what I'm doing. But basically what I'm doing, I think this is going to work. Right, so if you come along with a pointed tool, you need to make a mark for you to pick up with your drill. So you're going to try and pick up on the center of that 0.5, and as you can see or not see, the pointer is sort of, once it's gone off to one side, that's it, you've had it. So if you can try and catch one in the center, you'll be good to go. So there's one we've caught in the center. Okay, so now we can, here I am, Mr. Unprepared as usual, get my 0.3 drill. Okay, and it's the smallest drill I've got is 0.3, so we can put that up in our pin vise, and we can pick up, where's the marker maker? I've lost it now. Let's just try and do another one. So if we get another one here, we can try and pick one up in the center. Okay, I think I've got that one. Yeah, there we go. So, it's got off to the side. So when we try and drill that, it's going to be very difficult because the drill is going to want to see, the drill goes straight off the side as well. The drill will kind of corkscrew itself off the side. So the best thing to do is come along with a pair of snips and actually remove these bits. Now I'm hoping you can see all this because I'm working to the side with a magnifier. Unfortunately my eyes, I can't use a you know, the headboard magnifiers. What I'm trying to do here is pick up and just remove these nubs off the top. Okay, and then what we can do is get a marker pen, and just go over the top like so, and then we can come along with a sander and sand away until we see no marker pen, and then we know we've got it nice and flat. So we've removed all that nib. Now we can come along and we can mark the centres quite easily because we can see the centre. If you just make a small pot mark and then look at it like so, and just mark your centres like that with your tool. Right, so we've got all our, I doubt you can easily see them, but we've got all our centres marked on there now. We've basically just gone in with a pin, sharp point, and just made a centre for the drill to pick up on. So now I've got a 0.3 drill in my chuck, in my pin vise, so I can just come along and just do an initial little turn just to make sure the drill is staying on centre. Okay, it's probably all blurred because it's focusing on my hand, but you get the idea. And if you do see it slightly off centre, then you can basically lean the drill one way. Okay, so there we are. I've drilled that now, and that's just made indentation. Now I wouldn't use these type of drills in your initial hand tool because they tend to corkscrew themselves in. I would use an ordinary drill like this from the microbox set that you can see I'm using here, and then you can control it much better. It won't just screw itself in like they will. They've got such a steep helix on them that they just pull themselves in. So you get the idea there, okay? And then all I've got to do is just keep going round until I've got them all drilled. And as you can see, I'm going in. Take your time. It's worth taking your time and just going in and doing a couple of turns just to check that you are still on centre, because if you're not, then what you can do, if you've just done a couple of turns, like you can see here, I doubt you can see it at all, but here I'm slightly off to the left as you look at it. So what I'm going to do is get the drill, and I'm just going to drill on that kind of angle, just a couple of turns, and then pull the drill up straight, and that will move the hole over to the centre. Okay, so now I've got my hole drilled in the centre. There we go. It doesn't need to be perfect, guys. I mean, it's all going to look okay at the end of the day. And what I'm doing, I'm starting from where this gap is, so I know where I've started. Otherwise, you sort of, if you just go randomly around there, you'll end up with holes not drilled, and some you'll drill twice, and that. As I say, a couple of turns, just see where the hole's coming out. After a couple of turns, you can rescue it, and they're great. So I can just drill them. Just let the drill go in, just only about a millimetre or whatever. Doesn't need to go too deep. Okay, and I'm going to go around and finish them all off at 0.3, and then we'll come back and look at the next step. Right, so now we have this one of these, as I said, horrible drills. It's in a motor tool. These things are great if you're using them with a tool, but they're not great for hand drilling because, as I say, they corkscrew themselves in. So this is a Galax Pro, because you're all going to ask what it is, where it came from, how much it was. I got it on Amazon. It's called a Galax Pro. It's exactly the same as the last one I had. It's just a different colour, and they last about 2 years and then they just don't work anymore, but they cost nothing. So brilliant tool, well worth having. So all I'm going to do now is, with the 0.3 drill in there, I'm going to pick up on the holes I've already drilled, okay, and I'm going to make them deeper. So hopefully you can see what I'm doing here, because I can't. So I'm going to start here and just pick up in that hole. Yeah, I can't do this on camera, guys, because I cannot see it. And if I put the light on this magnifier, then you can't see what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is, just using this, is just drill the holes deeper, okay? Okay, so what you could do, I went around first of all, drilled those 0.3 holes, and you could just put your wire in there, go from there, call it a day. But we want to replace that plastic lump that we cut away on there. So what I've done here, I've gone in and I've drilled them 0.55, because I'm going to use this. This is from Albion Alloys. This is brass tube. It has a 0.50D and a 0.3 internal diameter. So here it is. Here's a piece I prepared earlier, and what we're going to do is glue this in, and that will replace that little raised area that we cut off. But the first thing I'm going to do is get a sanding stick, and I'm going to roll it under the sanding stick like so. Let's do it on my mat so I don't get my nice green thing dirty. So I'm going to roll that underneath there, and that is going to just key up the surface a bit. In fact, what I'm going to do is actually stroke it. Oh, misses. And that should just, I'll give the glue something better to work on. And then what I'm going to do is get a rule, and I'm going to cut myself some bits of brass, and I'm going to cut them roughly 3mm long. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just come along to the end, set my knife at 3mm, move the knife, and then just move the rule, sorry, and then just roll the blade over. Okay, push it along to the end, roughly 3mm, roll it, and it'll just, as you can hear it, it just cuts through. I'm not pushing down at all. You don't want to use any pressure, just let the blade do the work. If you push down, you will end up crushing the end of the tube, and you'll put a big burr in there as well, so it'll be very difficult to get anything to go in there. Whereas if you just cut it very gently, as you can see, I'm just putting my finger there to stop it flying off. Okay, and then what we can do is grab our little Pringles lid, as we normally do. Got some of my favourite VMS black thin super glue. I'm just going to put a small drop on here. Always use fresh glue with this. Don't use, if you've got something there that's been sitting there for an hour, it's a bit sticky, don't be tempted to use it. And then we're just going to grab some tweezers. I've got the wide ones. I'm not using my anise ones because I don't want to get them covered in super glue, basically. So I'm just going to put a drop of super glue on there. And as I say, these are 0.5, so I've drilled the holes 0.55. The reason I've done that is because otherwise, if I don't, when I put the part in, all it'll do is just push all the super glue off. So I'm just going to push that in there and get it roughly to a depth I want. It only needs to be rough. It doesn't need to be perfect. As long as it's not in too far, it needs to be, what I'm looking for is about 0.7mm out, which is what they were before. So that's about 1mm, that's fine. So come along, pick up another one, just like so. You're probably going to lose some flicking across the room. Don't worry about that too much. And just get some super glue on the end. And then once again, we're just going to put that into that hole, just like so. And then just push it in so that it's into roughly the same depth as the others, as the other one, should I say. And there we go. And I'm going to go around and do that all the way around. There's 28 of them, so we've got to make 28 little pieces of this brass, and then we'll come back. So see you in a sec. All right, so we've got those tubes all glued in, as you can see there. And they're all sticking out about 1mm. I want to get them to about 0.75, which is what they were. I'm going to get my calipers ready, which is what the plastic ones were. I measured them before. I should have said, always, if you're cutting something off that you're going to replace, always measure first and make a note of it. So they're all sitting out there now 1mm. Don't ever think, oh, I'll remember that, because you may put it down. You may get an emergency, heaven forbid, anything. You may not be picking it up for another 3 or 4 days and you won't remember what size it was, so always write it down. So what we're going to do now is actually make these down to the right length. Now there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can come along and sand them like this, or if you've got a little motor tool like this one, you can put your part in there, do the collar up nice and firm, and then what we can do is use this tool almost like a lathe, but we're using a sanding attachment, and just hold our sanding stick against the brass, as you can see here, and we will get the brass coming off, and we can reduce it in length. Okay, then we can come along with our calipers and we can measure the length. Okay, they're 1 millimeter now, so we can go again and just use our sander again. I'm not putting any pressure on, because if you do, you'll snap the pin off. Because remember, you may think you're just pushing it one way. What you're doing to that pin is that. So don't put any pressure on, just let the sander do the work. And the other thing is, this is going to get them all exactly the same length, which will look nice and even. Okay, so we can check the length again. Okay, 0.9, so a little bit more. That should be about it. Oops. 0.66. I've gone a little touch too far. I'm not going to worry about that. But there you can see we've got our brass. We've got our brass pieces on there, and it almost looks as though they're longer this side than that side. It looks as though the yeah, that's 0.8 and that one is 0.6. So what we'll have to do is, obviously that's not dead center, so what we'll have to do is just go around with the sander just like this and just shorten those long ones down a bit. But at the end of the day, if you don't tell anyone, I won't, and no one's going to really notice when the cables and everything are in and it's all painted. So there we go. So there's me saying I'm going to get them all the same length. Obviously that center there is not very much in the center. So there we go. Never mind. Right, so start looking at putting some cables in. So what we have to do is look at the wiring pattern. Okay, now the way the wiring pattern goes on this, you've got a cable going to here, then you've got a cable going to here, then you've got a cable going to here, and then you've got a cable going to here. I think that's the way it goes. I'm just going to check, because Edward have got it right on their instructions. So the first one goes to the front. The second one goes to the front rear. The third one goes to the rear, and the fourth one goes to the front rear. Okay, so the first one is starting. So the first one is going to be a short one. So I've got some all cut off here. If you want to get these straight, okay, just grab something flat and smooth, like a very smooth sanding stick. Here's a 2000 grit. And you can just roll them underneath the sanding stick and it will straighten them all out. Okay, there we go, making a mess on the board again. So that's the way to get them straight. So what we can do is take one of these longer ones, and I know that this one is going to be the third one. That's right. So we're going to start, that's going to be not there, we're going to start here. So 1, 2, 3. So this one's going to go into that hole there. Okay, now as you will see, I may have trouble getting this in, because when we sanded it around, what we did, we've made a burr on the end. So we need to get a 0.3 drill, and on this drill I've got a sleeve, as you can see. Remember I said it just screws itself in? that will stop it screwing itself in. So we're going to go all the way around these and just basically open them up. Okay, so that we can get our wires in there with no problem. And all we're doing is deburring the top of the holes. So that is how we do it without without it just pulling itself in and snapping the drill off once it gets to the bottom. There we are. So we've got super glue in there as well. So I'm just going to go on and get them cleaned out, and then we can carry on with the wire. In fact, what I'm going to do is clean out the ones I need now. So we got, we're not doing that one, we've got that one, it's the third one, so it's this one. This is the one we need deburred. And then that one as well. That one. And this one. Come on, go in. Okay, next day now. Sorry, I've jumped forward a bit here because I was drilling out those holes. This is where we were when I left you, weren't we? And the brass kept coming out. So I've gone on and glued all the wires in. It's obvious all you do is just open up those holes and then just dip the wire in the super glue and glue them in. This is actually 0.3 copper wire. So so basically it's sort of the right kind of colour, so it doesn't matter if it chips or gets scratched off or whatever, and it's also very flexible. If you use stainless steel wire, it can be a little stiff, and when you bend it, it can actually snap those bits off, which is why I've sort of drilled quite deep in to give them some strength. What I discovered when I've done, because the other one is done, this is the second one, the other one is there done. What I discovered, if I just had them sort of a millimetre in, you could pull the wire and physically snap the plastic off. So you'll see on this one, there's one that's a little bit messy. I can't think which one it is now. But there's one that's a bit messy, and they actually snapped off, and I had to glue all the plastic back together first. But anyway, so I've used the copper wire because it's much more resilient, and also gone deeper so the brass tubes are longer and into the main ignition ring. So it's really unfortunate on this one where I showed you me spinning it and they end up different lengths. On this one they're all the same length. But you know, they're not going to be next to each other. It's going to be like this on the model, so no one's going to notice. And if you don't tell anybody, then nor will I. So there we go. So they're all glued in, all the wires are in. And if you look at the firing sequence, we've got from the actual where the magneto would go, for some reason it's blanked off on this model, we've got long, so that's the 40mm, then the 30mm, then the 15mm, and then the 25mm, and then once again 40, 30, 15, 25, 40, 30, 15, 25. And that's how it's done. And the reason for that is we've basically got, when we got it together, there we go. So if we start with this one here, so miss a pair, okay, you start with this one here, so from the magneto, miss a pair, that one is the front, okay, so that wire there is front, all right, that wire there is rear, front, that wire there is rear, and that wire there is front, rear for the next cylinder. Okay, so this one's going to there. Show you, this one is going to there, this one is going to there, this one is going to there, and this one is going to there. So it's front, rear, front, rear, front, rear. Okay, front, rear, front, rear. All right. Or you could say forward, front, back, front, back, rear, forward, rear. All right, so that's the correct firing sequence. And then what we can do when we got all in, we can actually put some little strings together and tie them together, because they have little, they're actually wired together here. So they would actually be sort of, there would be a bridge across them here, if you like. So so there we go. So now we have to look at the cylinders. Somebody has actually asked the question, when I put these brass rings on, if you've seen the video, did I put them right way around? Yes, I did put them right way around, because you can see the brass rings are not full rings, because obviously you wouldn't be able to get them over the cylinders, but they do go on that way round. I'm going to take these push rods out, just get them out, they go like that, and you can see they go on, and they slightly sit proud. So when you put the push rod in, if I did them the other way around, they may well cause a problem going the other way, but they wouldn't, because it's wider there, but then you wouldn't have the full ring at the front, so that's why I've done them like that. So so there we go, and I haven't bothered putting them on the rear at all because you simply cannot see them. So there we go. Right, now then, spark plugs. This particular model, this particular kit, this won't apply to all kits. I'm going to grab a pointer. Here I am unprepared again, I've got no tools out ready at all. So we can see here that this spark plug is moulded on as a little tiny nub there, and it's kind of, you know, perpendicular, so obviously it can be moulded. But in reality the spark plug goes on this kind of angle, so what I'm going to do is just above that pip I'm going to make an indentation in the plastic, and I'm going to do the same here. Okay, and go round and just make indentations in the plastic like so for a drill to go in. Alright, and we hope they're in the centre. But I'm making indentations, and I'm actually going to drill these on the correct angle if I can. I'm going to try and get them in the right position as well. So I'm going to do this under a magnifier, and what I'm going to do is just do that, and then I'm going to drill them out, I don't know how deep, with a 0.3 drill. And go for it. Okay, so there we go. Alright, so we're going to drill them out and then see what we're going to do next. Alright, so they're all drilled out now with a 0.3 drill, so that's the pilot, and we can decide where we're going to go from there. We might decide to leave it and just put the wires in like that. We might decide to make a bit of a brass tube and put a spark plug in there or whatever. We might decide to use the INI spark plugs. At this point, I don't know. I probably won't be using the INI spark plugs because I think on this particular engine, because of the cowling and the shape, I think it's a bit of a waste. I'd rather use them on something with a more open, you know, something like a P47 where it's all more open. As far as the back goes, if you remember on the front row, the spark plugs are to the right. Okay, so leaving room for the exhaust. And there's no provision on the model for, there's no location for a spark plug. So what I've done, you can see here where this comes down and forms an L. We've got a corner in there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and I'm just going to make a mark there as I've done on the other cylinders, and then I could come in with my drill and again at a sort of fairly acute angle just drill a pilot hole. Again, you can see I'm using the drills from the micro box rather than those other horrible things. Okay. The other thing I found with those other drills, the cheap ones, when you put them in a motor tool, they're all over the place. So they're just not good at all. I wouldn't bother with them. Far better off with the drills from the micro box. The only beauty of them is they come with all the shanks are the same size, so you could just have one collet in your tool. But the downside with them is they're carbide, so they're extremely brittle. I mean, the 0.3 drill, you can literally put it down a bit heavy. And I don't even mean drop it. I mean just put it down a bit heavy and it will snap off. So be very careful with them. There we go. So we're getting these holes in here. Again, I won't do anything with these because this engine is going to be, both engines are going to be in the aircraft. They're not going to be on display. They're not going to have any cowls open or anything like that. So you're not really going to see much of them at all. I'm just trying to add a bit of interest into the actual, you know, when you actually look at the engines, when the model's sat there on display, although no one's ever going to see it because it's just going to sit in my house. So there we go. So there we are. Right, I think we've done that. We've gone all the way around. Yes, we've gone all the way around. So there we've got a hole there now ready for those wires to go in. I'll probably drill them out something like 0.4 just to make it easier to thread the wires in. So we've got our front holes. Now I'm going to decide what I'm going to do with the front holes. Have a little think about it. Alright, so I've got both of them done, and all I've done, the rear ones are drilled out 0.4. I'm just going to leave them, not going to put any spark plugs. And here, as you can see, I have put in a piece of 0.6 OD by 0.4 bore brass tube. I just left it sticking at about 1 millimetre, something like, once it's all painted and everything, it's, you know, you're not going to notice any little variations. If you do want to get a precise diameter, make a nice sort of tight press fit of a hole. Just notice I've got a bit of a flash there. Make a nice precise fit of a hole, and then you can get a piece of plastic rod, drill it out 0.6, and then just drill it out to a certain depth, and then just push it down over, and you'll get them all to the same depth then. Or indeed, drill all the holes to the same depth, cut all the bits of tube to the same length and push them in. But that's very difficult to get all the tubes exactly cut to the same length. So, but there we go. You can see they're in there. So what we're going to do, this push rod assembly, we'll put this on here first. So that's the rear assembly there. Right, that's timed in there. And then this one is timed on here. So that's going to go on there like that. And then we got the push rod assembly. We've got the scallops cut out on one side to clear the photo etch parts, and that's going to go in like that. And as you can see, all those push rods then slot into those caps. And then we're going to put the front of the engine on, just give that a turn, push the tape in at the back, that'll hold it in place. And then when it comes to wiring, I'll just do a couple of these, because basically what I'm going to do is get all of this painted first, and the last thing I do will be wiring. So what we'll do is obviously cut it off to a suitable length. But that one there is going to come over the top, and it's going to go into that spark plug there. And I'm being careful not to snap anything here, but that's going to go into there. If I could see what I was doing, it would be great. I'll tell you what, guys, getting old is not fun. They say life begins at 40. It possibly does, but everything goes downhill. So there we go, that's going to go in there like that, but obviously it's going to be cut off shorter. And then this one, the second one, will thread through the baffle plate. And what we'll probably do when we come to assemble all this is thread all those that are going through and then slide the cylinders in, because they're quite difficult to get through, especially this one that has to go over through there and around into that hole there. So that one is going to go through there. So okay, so that's gone through there, and then that's going to come around, that's going to go like that, and then the back of it is going to wrap around, and it's going to go into that hole there like so. Okay, so obviously that's going to be cut to length as well, and then the second one's going to go into that spark plug there, and then here this one's going to go into the back of that one there. And again, we'll probably take this off and we'll wire up the front cylinders, and then we'll push the wires through the baffle plate and then wire up the rear cylinders. It's going to be difficult, but as I say, I'm going to paint it all first, because obviously painting and weathering and that, it's going to be, I don't know, maybe I'll paint it and then get all the oils and everything on there after. I'm going to take that one carefully out of there. I'm going to take that one carefully out of there and then pull that wire straight. As I say, be careful about pulling them about too much, because that ring is not very strong. So that's going to come out of there, and you can see we've got all our wires there now, so they can come out nice and straight. And also the other thing was the copper wire, if you keep pulling it about, it will stamp. So there we go, and you have to drill it out again, and that can be a nightmare. So there we are. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. I haven't shown you the end result, and I'm not going to show you the end result in this video, because I want to get the video out there, and it's going to be a while before that's all finished, because these have got to be primed and then painted, and then we've got to do the gloss black on the push rods, we've got to do the aluminium on the heads. I think the cylinders will be steel. It's going to be lots of different colours, and then we'll do some dry brushing and some washes and try and make it all pop, and go from there. So this video has just been about how to do this part of it. So there are a million ways to skin a cat. You don't have to do it this way. But as I say, probably the easiest way to do it on the front here would be to get this in position, get that perhaps glued onto there. Okay, so assemble the whole lot, put some cement in there, and then take this off and wire the backs of those cylinders and then push it all in. But, we will cross that bridge when we come to it, and obviously for whatever model you're building, then you may do it differently. But I can assure you that this applies. This can apply to any scale, any engine, whatever. They're all the same. They have different shaped push rod. I mean, the one difference is you saw me spin this in the drill. if you take an R2800, it has a sort of horseshoe shaped ignition ring, so you won't be able to do that on there. You just have to sand them individually. But there we go. So hopefully you can see that close up, and you can see the bit of detail around the spark plugs. Yes, I've used black super glue just so I can see where it is. Once it's painted, it'll all disappear. And I've sort of puddled it into the spark plug holes so that it gives that sort of softer cast looking rather than the sharp square hole, because it was actually like a cast indentation with the spark plug bored in. And as you can see now, we've got the spark plugs on the right angle, so when you put the cable in, it'll kind of form that sort of 90-degree dog leg going in. So there we go. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned for the A20 build. This isn't part of the A20 build, this was just to show you how to go about doing that on whatever engine, whatever scale, whatever you're doing. Alright, thank you for watching. Bye for now.